everybody. Welcome to the new normal. I'm your host, Lisa Davis, aka Litecoin Lisa. Today, I am back in my office. Things are piled up. We are listing new things every day over at the Mighty Merchants over on Etsy and eBay, so check those out. But today, we have Skullcap Savant for you. The Qualia is flying, even though Uncle Cliff says nobody cares about your Qualia and they don't want you to tell or analyze their Qualia. We're still going to tell you about it. So we also have a bunch of Vsteg going on. The Oklahoma City Thunder won and is headed to the finals. A bunch of people care about that. We'll tell you what we think about it right after this. So jump in the live chat and let us know what you think about it right after this. Welcome back, Ben. Good to have you.
Yeah, we have a switcheroo on the days. I think probably the audience probably noticed we're going from Wednesdays to Thursdays. I have a job schedule change during the week. So thanks, Johnny Litecoin, too. Just public service announcement for being willing to be amenable to swapping into Wednesdays. My old slot.
And he's going to be kind of floating around because sometimes we're going to do Wednesday and sometimes we're going to do Thursday because he goes so much later that it won't really matter.
Oh, okay. It's not even going to conflict, huh?
Yeah, like I think tonight we're going to try to meet up later, but it's going to be like late night with Johnny. So.
Oh, cool. Okay.
There we go.
Well, thank you either way for the flexibility where it mattered. Yeah. I did not want to not have my weekly FaceTime with you if we could all swing it. So,
well, thanks. Yeah, I know. I look forward to it. It's a lot of fun, and there's so many things like popping off, and lots of people are talking about, the EBS stuff again. Everybody's asking, oh, when or is it going to happen? Once again, we don't like to give dates or do any kind of prediction stuff. We're just talking about what we're kind of seeing in the news and in things. And we thought it was interesting. So I live in Oklahoma City area, and we were seeing a lot of stuff leading up, talking about these wolves. And then the Oklahoma City Thunder last night played the Wolves. Mm-hmm. And that was leading them up to see if they would make the finals. And they did beat the Wolves. And my sweet son-in-law is just so freaking excited. He's a big Thunder fan. And he was super excited because they did beat the Wolves. And I guess they don't have like back in the day when the Thunder first started, they had some bigger names, I can't remember who they were.
Yeah, they stole them from my hometown, the Seattle Supersonics, man. That was my team growing up.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. They were originally the Seattle team. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because I keep seeing Sonic Hedgehog. That's a big movie coming out right now or something. I see lots
Jim Carrey in that one too. Is Joe Biden's understudy in that one too?
I don't know. I see
Jim
a
Carrey
lot
played Dr. Robotnik in all those movies. I never saw any of them, but I was always looking into that. But that is interesting.
Now I'll have to look at those promos a little closer because I see a lot of Sonic Hedgehog promos lately, and I didn't put the 2 and 2 together, but that may have some comms in it as well.
The Supersonics were always kind of a call to the aerospace industry up there, like a sonic boom is what their name was after.
So Oklahoma City specifically has huge. So there's a big history in aerospace in Oklahoma City, especially for women. There's a museum for women's aerospace. There's a documentary about it, and Funk, which is a real wealthy family, the sister was in some of the testing. So what it was is they had mechanics, and because they flew these fighter jets, but they weren't allowed to be in the space program. because they were women, but they knew they were capable of flying these fighter jets because they were mechanics during the war. And so they allowed them to do these secret space testing. Um,
No way. We got to look
yeah,
into that kind of
it's a
thing.
whole thing. Um, and and I can't remember her name, but her last name is Funk, and she was one of them that they did. And because of their body composition, because they're women and they're smaller and whatever, there were different results. And there's a whole documentary about it, and there's a museum down by the airport, down by Rogers Airport
I wonder
for
if we're going to find like
women.
timepieces. I'm not wearing my timepiece right now, but like, or if we find a bunch of
Maybe
steganography and
at
og
the
based crap.
museum, that would be crazy. There's
Yeah.
also, right as COVID was kicking off, there were big deals happening, at OSU, where I went to college, and they were digging in the stadium, underground, about it had something to do with, like, rockets or aerospace, something to do with energy,
Ley
underground.
lines, maybe?
Not ley lines, I don't think, but it was
Well,
something.
whatever the cover story is, they're probably not going to
Yeah,
admit to, because the one of my pontifications, because we always look at the cathedrals, or as I call cathedrals, because they're all in those specific ley line
mhm,
intersections, and they're all built with specific harmonics in mind and attenuations. I've um I've long speculated and lined up with the Vsteg work a lot of the major sporting events, especially we're coming up on the NBA finals. The OKC Thunder are going to be in there, and we'll get into that here in a sec. But just like this one point that they're digging underneath, right? You always wonder what the Boring Company is doing, or I do
so
at
this is
least.
aeronautics. Yeah, go
And
ahead.
I always wonder if the Boring Company is digging specific channels underneath to create their own ley line pathways or conduits, energy conduits. And I've long wondered if the stadiums themselves are big energy capture devices for the mind control itself. Because when you think about it, there's a lot of symbolism that goes into a sporting event. You've got names, numbers on the jersey, and then the symbolic iconography of the mascots themselves. So if you really wanted to cast a spell that's broadcast to the masses, and the result of that stream or that game, that gamification, the war games, whatever it is, it's just the simulation on the field. A lot of people talking about, in these days, Las Vegas rigging sports at very least. I think we can all probably
Yeah,
agree in this community there's a lot of rigging that goes on.
there's a lot
But
of
what
rigging.
might be the ulterior reason, like the upward, the ultimate, like on the top of the pyramid, eye of the Illuminati pyramid reasoning for casting the spells in a certain way with certain iconography is the stadiums themselves, with all this attention and all this raucous energy, are they capturing something? And can it be broadcast into ley lines? These are all questions I have. They're not claims or anything, but when you line up gematria and you line up symbolism, you line up steganography, and they all match a kind of an underlying story, it starts to make you wonder.
See, the nation has the first 3D aeronautic standards. This is Oklahoma State Department of Education announces the adoption of the nation's first three-dimensional aeronautic standards. Like, why is that happening in Oklahoma? Um, all
Yeah.
this aerospace week in Oklahoma, um, industry leader for Oklahoma. We have, of course, a big military base here in Oklahoma City. Boeing is based out of Oklahoma City. Um,
Maybe that's why the Sonics moved
Great.
there. There's all this occult Boeing switcher, because Boeing is founded up in Seattle, and it's no longer headquartered up there, but that's still where all the main
No, it's in
facilities
Oklahoma
are.
City. Yeah. Mhm.
And it was in Chicago for a while. They changed their headquarters to
Interesting that it
Chicago for a
moves
while.
around.
Yeah. To answer the Rand's question about going to Westwood, no, sorry, I can't go because I just started a new job this week, as I mentioned at the beginning, and I don't have any paid time off accrued or anything like that. It would be kind of bad form to go across the
Maybe.
country
Maybe in the spring you can come to Arkansas.
I want to come to one of them soon. Yeah.
Yeah.
The sooner I can come, the better
Yeah.
to come shake some hands and stuff. But yeah, to get back to your main point though, the Wolves, the OKC Thunder, kind of some things that Lisa and I were talking about. She started the show by saying, Cliff even posted this week, nobody cares about your qualia. And
Yeah.
I kind of place, by the way, the steganography as a signaling mechanism in a different bucket than the qualia. The qualia is kind of the universe giving you the thumbs up that you should keep looking in a certain direction. If it manifests that way, that's even cooler because it was universe guiding your intuition toward those results. But if anybody ever wonders why, I don't even think I've ever explained this, and perhaps it's a good time to take a pause and take 2 to 3 minutes for me to explain why I think the steganography is actually important, and why it's been a form of research that I've or a filter on the research to confirm certain aspects of my speculations about history and things like that, is because I think it is a deliberate casting mechanism. I think there's an intelligence to the literal spell casting of our environment to mind control us, to sway us, to suggest to us certain things. And we've all gone into the MK Ultra side of things and seen how that can affect literally the mind with wavelengths and suggestion and subliminal messaging and the kind of advertising techniques, right? Like a lot of the stuff that the MK Ultra mind control apparatus is able to do to the mind, I think a lot of people just take for granted on a daily basis of being imprinted with things that are of a weaker but similar nature, just in your average advertising, and you really aren't even aware of what kind of an effect that could have on you. And just kind of like the remote viewing guys can take a random set of letters and numbers and close their eyes and put a pen up against it and infer information from it. The steganography as a casting mechanism of something more deliberate, I've always kind of had the inquiry for myself to prove or not prove, and have only so far been able to prove in the positive. I think what my hypothesis is if you cast something like the character V over and over and over and over again, and it has the same kind of contextual meaning behind it over and over and over and over again, what does that do to the overall population? And so there's that piece of it, but there's also that subliminal advertising piece that I've been able to like derive some sort of meaning from, that is kind of suggestive of this hidden hand that might be using it, maybe kind of like Cliff used to talk about the self-organizing collective years ago, the self-organizing collective that were based in the ancient Cathari ways. And I've long wondered if that collective isn't using the steganography to help guide our thinking with suggestive mechanisms to wake us up, to put us back on the trail of what actual historical context was back to like the Tartarian days and before. Because if the public is asleep and you're not going to convince them just by regular debate to wake them up, can you possibly impress upon them collectively to slowly guide their thinking forward? And then by what mechanism would you be able to confirm that this is happening? My hypothesis continues to be that that's the V-steganography specifically. There's another guy on the internet that actually you guys can probably have heard of him. His name's Dark Journalist. And he covers steganography too. He covers X steganography. And it was funny that when I started looking at these patterns, all of a sudden his popularity shot up because he was with Joseph Farrell and Catherine Austin Fitts at the original UFO space conferences, trying to figure out what was going on with the breakaway civilizations. And there was a lot of overlap with what the X steganography was saying and what the V steg was suggesting. The X steg is slightly different in certain ways. It ties in with time and in more specific ways than the V steg even does. The V steg kind of is more representative of the person, the number 5, the person, the template of the body. You know, we have 5 digits on our finger, 5 senses. We take 5 feet in a pace. On and on and on it goes. So if you can control or sway the person into that channeling kind of thing, what kind of effects does it have? And this kind of will get into with the Minnesota Wolves today, I think, because
Okay.
one of my areas of research in the steganography points back to when the Cathars, the Vikings, the Templars, maybe all the same like derivative group, were here in the United States as early as the 1200s and 1300s, back in the days when they were warring with the Vatican. And what you actually go back and you look at these guys like Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon is this old mystic that people think might be still alive. Even like he's found ways to keep himself alive over 400 years. And he wrote these things like these texts that were kind of Masonic in nature, not so unlike how our founding fathers were Masonic in nature, very, very cryptic about the actual knowledge that they brought over with them from over in Britain. And similarly, how many voyages did these Templars take over to the United States to reclaim this ancient land for themselves back when the world was scattered and shattered, you know, back when we just had native cultures and stuff here. And this goes back to the 1300s in Minnesota, where the Wolves are, where the Lakers used to be, made a lot more sense to me. You know, the Minnesota Lakers, or the Minneapolis Lakers, because it's the land of 1,000 lakes. Now that the Lakers are in LA, it doesn't really make any sense. They kept the name for whatever reason. Funny enough, like even the Supersonics, when they moved to OKC, they changed it to the Thunder, something a little bit more apropos for the area. But what the point is because
But Sonic is like about the lightning,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah,
so
you're
then
right.
to go to
You're talking about the
Thunder,
hedgehog, Sonic the Hedgehog again, right?
well, or just Sonic Boom, is really about the
Oh,
sound. So
it's
then
yeah,
to change your name to the Thunder, which is what Sonic Boom
I
is,
see
it
what you're
really
saying.
isn't that far of a stretch.
Maybe not. Maybe it's just like you're saying, like a play on words.
Mhm.
Um, but there's this weird lore that goes back to who really claimed the United States. Was it really Christopher Columbus in 1492, or was it these guys that were here 200 years earlier? And is there a way that we can prove that they did? And there's an
Okay.
artifact that is under great debate for its authenticity called the Kensington Rune Stone, the Kensington Rune Stone. People can look this up because we don't have time to get into it totally in a
Mhm.
short podcast. But what a rune stone was back in the day, it was a land claim. It was it was a popularized way that nations observed land claims. And the idea is if you placed your rune stone at a location, you'd keep part of your exploration party behind to guard it, while you
Mhm.
also sent part of your exploration party back to the originating part of the voyage, like back to Portugal, if that's where you launched from, or back to somewhere in Europe, right? To have some writ of claim that you said, hey, we put a rune stone down here. We claim all of the land that the water touches. And
It
there were these
usually
rules.
went back to the keystone too, or to the, like, to the delta, to the highest point of, where the water parted, and it was
There
like
you go.
they put it back to the farthest point where the water split, and that claimed anywhere from where that water split forward or something like that, or backwards. I can't
Right.
remember
So
which it was.
it's tributaries is is the word
Yes.
you're looking for. So
Mhm,
if anybody cares to look at this is kind of like if you look at the highway system in the United States, you could technically connect all the roads back to each other because they all connect. They're all paved together, technically. And so the United States is connected with this network of roads. Well, the land similarly is connected with all these tributaries that Lisa's inferring. And
okay,
there were rules that would suggest that if the water went through a certain area, I think you got like between 15 or 50-mile radius around that the land also claimed. But Minnesota, being the land of 1,000 lakes, has the most highest concentration of tributaries. They placed it very strategically, these Templars, very smart at the head of that. And they claimed something like 70% of all of North America just by doing that. not just the United States, Canada, Mexico, where all of these tributaries flow to. So if we're looking at Oklahoma City Thunder, the land of tornadoes too, the last few days, there's your Wizard of Oz nod. There's your part of the
Okay,
Steg and the
so
mind control
and
piece.
over the last couple of years I've been following, there's this case in having to do with half of the state
Mhm.
where the Cherokee Nation, and there's this argument about like who has control and can the state police pull over or charge Native American people, and do they have to give the land back? And there's this whole, and I can't remember the name of the case now, but I've been following, and then that took me into, the tribal, the indigenous people murders and all this kind of stuff. I've been following this stuff. Well, then today, and I don't think this happened today, because you can see over King Charles' head, it says through 2017. But let's
Yeah.
just play along with the movie. Um, King Charles says unceded, which means that it's a land acknowledgement, thereby admitting that Canada is no longer held by the crown, and gives it back to the indigenous people.
There you go. By the way,
All Canada.
the Templars were very, very close with the indigenous peoples. They shared knowledge with them. They actually made treaties to interbreed with them to share such knowledge. This is where a lot of these old stories about, where Quetzalcoatl would land down in the Aztecs. These were knowledge sharing people, the Templars. They
Okay,
took the
only one
ancient
more
spiritual
thing, Ben.
knowledge.
Hold on, one more thing, I promise, then I'll
Oh,
let you
this
just
too. Yeah, you
run with
showed me
it.
this too.
Then, also today, and let's remember that Trump, I think the whole, uh, blah, 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 what's it called? The little prison thing.
What?
Alcatraz.
Alcatraz? Yeah, yeah.
Alcatraz is actually a national park. It's a museum. I think first of
A
all, I think
national
he's just,
park. Is it really a national park? I didn't
I
know that.
believe so. I'll look it up to make sure, but I believe it is. I know it is
Wow.
a museum or something, but I'll look it up just to make sure. But they just confirmed Charles Chuck Sams III as the head of National Park Service, making him the first Native American ever to lead the agency. They've also turned over a lot of dams and waterways back to the Native American people here in America. And oh, Jesse Paul, I'm so glad he just had the biggest
Think
squirrel.
about what dams. I've always actually wondered about the dams too, Lisa, because
Mhm.
you put a dam somewhere, it stops the water from naturally flowing where it's supposed to go.
Mhm.
And you actually can dry up tributaries by doing it's a really effective way to dry up tributaries or to flood areas that you actually want to flood, like the Ozarks, which was a big gold mine before. A lot of people don't know this. The Ozarks are like a mini Grand Canyon that was created by a big lightning bolt from somewhere. And there's a shit ton of gold under there, old defunct gold mines underneath there.
Yeah.
And so they'll create
Also
false
diamond
water
mines.
systems, and then they'll dry up where the water's supposed to go, as if to maybe claim what wasn't theirs in the first place artificially.
Right.
So
Great way to
all these
put it.
developments are interesting.
Yes. So, and if you want a good steward who won't take the land for themselves, but would steward the land for we the people,
Mhm.
that's what the Native Americans were doing before. They weren't holding the land to own it for themselves. They were stewarding the
Yeah.
land for we the people.
Yep.
This is all just what if, and this is interesting, and just having some interesting
Yeah.
chat.
Well,
But
one of the other interesting things that I've always wondered about the lore of it and the Masonic
yeah.
background of the Templars and our founding fathers is Francis Bacon always talked about reclaiming or reestablishing New Jerusalem, a sacred term to them, not the Jews who reappropriated it. And they call where, the Temple Mount and all that stuff. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes back to what the Jolly Roger actually represents too, the pirate flag
Oh,
that the
don't even
Templars
get
actually
me.
donned.
Yes.
The pirate flag was originally made by the Templars, And continue on with Alcatraz. I want to get back to that. What's your point on
Yes, it
Alcatraz?
is considered part of the National Park
It is.
Service.
Okay, there you go. Look at that. Interesting developments.
Bam. Yeah.
So the New Jerusalem thing, if you go take the measurements of New Jerusalem in the Bible, it's this big cube that's talked about, right? Oh, it's a big golden city made out of a cube. And it's supposed to be this mystical thing where people go after, the rapture happens. And this is the way Revelation interprets it. But if you, and that's modern Revelation interprets it, like in the New King James Version. But if you just take the measurements of New Jerusalem, and you were to take one side of the cube, so one of those squares, one surface of the 6-sided cube, what you would get is you would get the exact, basically down to like a square mile or something, the exact measurements of what the 13 original colonies were in terms of an area, like a surface area. So you have an exact match even for what the founding fathers were using, with a lot of this old lore and the land claim that they were only probably inheriting from what the Templars were. And again, this is the land. This is supposed to be the land of free people. We were supposed to be the stewards of the land. Borders get drawn and shit later. And sure enough, we have a big mess on our hands today. But the interpretations of all this stuff, this is where the Vsteg gets really, really pithy and interesting to me, because it's so faceted. With the it's like a decoder ring, in my opinion, to like look at what's written and see, okay, what's really being said here. There's a cipher in what's being written down.
And look at this, the Golden Gate National Recreation Area.
Well, what were you saying about the Golden Gate Bridge earlier that goes with our bridges theme from last week?
I've just had like a gut thing and seen it in a couple things that I kept thinking, like the Golden Gate, something was going to happen to it.
Somebody said it was going to get destroyed, you said, or something, or somebody claimed.
Yeah, there was somebody talking about it, or that it was going to go down. It was going to go down, and then somebody else said it. I've seen it on a couple different things. I don't know. And now to see that it's part of that Alcatraz is part of the Golden Gate National Recreation Area. Maybe it was more to do with this. I don't really know. I don't know.
To be continued as it goes with some of this.
It's just interesting that that Alcatraz is part of the National Park Services, right, and it is part of the Golden Gate National.
Well, we're just about to go. Do we know what day the NBA Finals start is? Because remember, guys, Lisa and I have been talking about since the Wolverine and Timex and Intrepid Museum, the helicopter crash in the Hudson River, followed by all the crazy shit that's going on in the Hudson River that's Vsteg related.
Called? National Basketball something?
When does the NBA Finals is what it's called? When did the NBA Finals start? Because if it's June 1st, that's just gonna be too funny. Game 1 is June 5th. Okay. Well, what we're determining is there's this weird June 1st to August 31st bookend with this whole Wolverine thing. And the Thunder just beat the Wolves in the conference finals, I guess you could possibly call it. And I guess I don't even know who's playing on the other conference. Who's playing for the other seat in the NBA finals right now? Do you know?
I don't know.
Let's see. I don't either. I don't follow this.
Okay, know
it's the Pacers and the Knicks. So we have the Indiana Pacers and the New York Knicks.
Oh, so it hasn't been decided yet.
Hasn't been decided. But some of this stuff is, again, if you're taking my suppositions about this, I think it's signaling. I think it's spell casting. I think it's symbolic canvassing, at very least, of mirroring current events and giving us clues as to how to interpret these events. It's kind of, again, part of this whole decoder process. So if bread and circus, great, is exactly like that's all the friggin' sporting events have ever been, in my opinion. It's just now it's a big money laundering mechanism for Vegas. By the way, vagus nerve. I've long wondered why they call it Las Vegas. I'm wondering if it hasn't always been to capture the signals of the vagus nerve, to hijack it, because it's all your vices. It's Vice City, it's the Sin City, and that's all the things that would hijack and make that vibrational frequency that would travel up and down your intuitive centers and your spiritual centers and get you further away from it. So if Vegas always wins in the betting of the sports and all this kind of stuff, isn't it maybe all just capturing your vagus nerve in order to pay attention to some shit that you shouldn't really be paying attention to?
Interesting.
So yeah, it's all
Well, I know they
along the
did
way.
all those, that Dr. Jack Cruz was talking about, they did all the tests with the monkeys and all that, and then
Yeah.
they're like, "Oh, awesome, we'll just make Vegas and black out the windows and do this to humans."
Did they really? Oh
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
Jack Cruz is a badass. I love Jack
yeah,
Cruz.
that's what Vegas is after they did that with the monkeys, they applied that to Vegas, and so those
Okay.
screens and the blacked out and giving them alcohol and having the screen, they can
There
keep
you
you
go.
there and
Yeah.
giving the money and yeah.
So
Yep.
I bet there's something really spot on with that then.
You're the monkey when you go to Vegas.
So what do you make of all this stuff, Leah? So I'm kind of fast. I apologize to the audience because we only have an hour plus to do these shows. So
Mhm.
my pace picks up just so everybody gets kind of some of the beats. So they're not like left wondering like, hey, where the hell did that term come from? Because that doesn't help anybody out. But it also sometimes doesn't help anybody out if we over talk the points either. But if we're putting this all together, Lisa and I still we are obviously looking toward all that Hudson River stuff as an interesting thing, all the
Mhm.
88s that we're seeing in the numerology of it to signal time and fucking with time, messing with time, manipulating time in some way, therefore manipulating your impressions and mind controlling you at that level.
Well, and some
We
of that
have
is just a lot of things happening. So
right.
it feels like time is speeding up because so many things are happening to, grab our attention, distract us, bread and circus, like
Yeah.
Jesus did. All of that's
So
confirmation.
do
And
you think there's something to the finals being like the Oklahoma City Thunder, like you say,
well,
the Lightning are we going back to this Kensington runestone stuff because of the Minnesota Wolves and Wolverine as it attaches to some of that? How do you
we got
interpret
a final day from Trump.
a
Um,
final day indicating what?
the end. Um, remember he said the end day, June 9th. Um,
Hmm. That's my parents' anniversary before they got divorced was June 9th. That's when they got married.
yeah, June 9th. Oh my goodness. And then did you see that he just tweeted Pepe out or on Truth Social?
No, I was actually waiting for him to say anything today after all the tariff wax on, wax off
Yeah,
garbage
so
overnight.
I'll show the Pepe thing. This was awesome. I'm kind of going backwards in time, so I apologize, but this is a Truth Social post
Oh,
from
this was the tweet that yeah, I did see this because you sent it to
real
me.
Donald J. Trump. He's on a mission from God. Nothing can stop what is coming. So that's a cue. Nothing can stop what's coming. And do you notice his little friend back here?
I see. Okay, that's hilarious.
His little Pepe. Um, so if that's not a nod to Q, mission from God, nothing can stop what's coming. That was from Donald Trump himself on Truth Social today. So that's really interesting. Wait, that was
No,
yesterday.
that
I'm
was
sorry.
yesterday. That was
That
yesterday.
was yesterday. That was the 28th. Um, and
Has he said
then,
anything since the tariff stuff then on
so
his
that got appealed.
yeah.
And so all tariffs are back on.
Yeah.
All this is just, word salad bullshit, and
Yeah.
and then Pam Bondi went after the American Bar Association today and said that, they don't get to look into, pulled back their like their rights to look into files and whatever. So there's just a lot of lawfare going on, I
I
guess.
think we are probably heading to where there's going to be such a shakeup in the legal field where all
Where it
these
will be
judges are just
military is the only way kind of
yeah.
thing.
The
Yeah.
JAG is going to be the only the military courts are going to be the only way that you can legislate on anything maybe, huh? Like how wild would that be?
Yeah. where is the one where he said,
Oh, what were the dates? Oh, Pride Month is canceled. That's what that was.
yes, um, which they did send out a thing in the military that said, do not celebrate or do anything with that because, DEI is done as of
Yeah.
May 21st. And then, we're in a merit system, so they can be, in trouble for all that. Where is the,
So you
sorry.
tweeted about that Australian chick eating the apple.
Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Here it is. We have an end date.
Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, and then I chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country. And because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff, and they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. Please, let's meet right now. And I said, okay, I'll give you till July. I actually asked them, I said, what's the date? Because they weren't willing to meet. And after I did what I did, they said, we'll meet anytime you want. And we have an end date of July 9th. You call that chickening out? Because we have $14 trillion now invested, committed to investing when Biden didn't have practically anything.
So he goes on, but we have an end date of July 9th.
So it sounds like he's almost saying an end date for any negotiations to take place. No more negotiating, maybe after July 9th is kind of what he means.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll find out.
This week too, it's been like the other drama is Benjamin Netanyahu's trying to say, oh no, Trump's still on my side. And Trump goes back and says, well, we're saying to you is you can't talk or talk to or bomb Iran because we're close to a deal with them. And Israel's trying to save face in all sorts of different friggin' ways.
Mm-hmm. Also, there was a huge glacier that busted loose in Switzerland and destroyed a town. Then there's these huge fires in Canada, and we're supposed to have sweeping smoke covering the majority of the US. Remember when we had the smoke? Was it a couple of years ago? It's been a while now. And so that could be another reason why the National Guard has to come out. There's always
there was another one too last week that didn't make national news because the firefighting teams and the communities over in Arizona, Oracle, Arizona, almost burnt to the ground. And it was more directed energy weapon shit. It's Lahaina and Paradise, California, and all of these places indicative of those things. And it was also pegged to be a smart city, apparently. But the community rallied against, and I've got friends there that have been telling me the epic stories of how everybody's been banding together to fight against it and say, no, fuck no, not here. So maybe they thwarted it. Who knows? You can't necessarily fight against the space lasers without the blue roofs and stuff, but
maybe. The other thing I saw was the Comfort is in the Caribbean.
The big Red Cross ship.
Yes, that was interesting to me, and I didn't know if you had any information or.
Well, a lot of my information of that, funny enough, goes also back to some of my Vsteg research with the Templars. The Knights Hospitaller were one of the divisions of knights. You got Teutonic Knights, you got Templar Knights, you got Hospitaller Knights, and they were all different derivatives of, and each sect kind of had their own focus, their own specialty. The Teutonic Knights were kind of the badass warriors. The Templars were the more Cathari guys. They were the mystics. They were the ones that had the spiritual knowledge. The Hospitallers were the health knowledge, the hermetic knowledge, right? And so back when a lot of the COVID stuff was happening, and these two, Mercy and Comfort, Mercy was the other one, one was on the West Coast and one was on the East Coast. I forget which one was which.
I don't remember either.
But that goes back to a lot of the lore that got us and my community into the research and the Jolly Roger and the piracy, because the Templars were originally the first pirates of the Caribbean. And they were archaeologists. That's what the Templars were. They were the ones that were unmasking a lot of what was going on at the Temple Mount at the time. They were given privilege by the Catholic Church. They convinced the Catholic Church that they were on their side. And this was kind of when the Jesuits were starting to take over. The Jesuits were the Khazarian mafia version of, what took over the Catholic Church originally. And the Jewish Jesuit control kind of inserted a lot of that mindset into the Catholic Church. And that was what kind of kicked off the war against the Templars. But the Templars were more interested in what they were finding archaeologically at the Temple Mount. And get this, in all likelihood, there is a tremendous likelihood, because there's so many connecting points back to what the Jolly Roger represents with the skull and the crossbones, is that it was said that they found Jesus's body in the ossuary where he, Mary Magdalene, and his lineage of sons and daughters, corporeal sons and daughters, and his grandchildren too, were buried. In an ossuary, if anybody's uninitiated in what this term is, it's just a big circular open area with a big hollow. It's almost like a big donut. It's like a mound, but it looks like a donut if you were going to look at it from bird's eye view down. And what would happen is when somebody would die in this faith, in the Cathari or the Templar faith, is they would put the dead body in the middle of the donut shape, and they would let the sun essentially eat the body away until there were only bones left. And once the sun, it's kind of like a solar cult in that way, would eat the flesh away, or vultures would come and eat the carrion, but it would all be given back to nature, was the idea. And you were just left with the bones. And then the bones would be collected and put into a box. And the box would be a very specific size. It wasn't very large. And there was a really specific way that you would arrange the bones inside the box, so it was efficient, and you can store it inside the walls, inside the mound, around the hollowed out part of the ossuary. And legend has it is the Templars found that Jesus and his lineage's ossuary with all their family bones, and they took them. And the funny thing is the last three bones that are laid on top of that little box are the skull and the two femurs. So the Templars, maybe, and like I said, there is a likelihood that this is the case, that they found Jesus's bones, they took his bones as a relic, and put that on the Jolly Roger as a middle finger to the Catholic Church on their way out over to New Jerusalem, the United States, the Pirates of the Caribbean, and reestablished themselves here. And this is, again, why the Kensington runestone matters so much, is because there's this order of events that happens where the Jolly Roger it's a really cool symbol to me, because it's like, we know the secret of Jesus, the Pentecost didn't happen, all this kind of stuff.
No, interesting.
Yeah, pretty interesting, right?
Well, that's my high school mascot. Is
it really?
The Pirates. Yes. And we had the pirate flag. I'm not kidding. Yeah. This is so funny to me. Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, there's some qualia for you.
High school.
Well, it's a lot for people to probably consider if they've never gone down that path before and considered that Jesus died as a human and not floated up to heaven, and, got sucked back up into the clouds kind of stuff. But, there's archaeological through line to this. And again, the Vsteg provides a certain amount of decoder ring confirmation to these events. And
that's so interesting. And that area was settled by the French.
Exactly. And Napoleon was the Napoleon was a revival of this Templar movement. We can't talk about, it's too deep of a topic to go talk about Napoleon. But Napoleon went to Egypt, and You know, even in Anatoly Fomenko's work, all these books here,
Mm.
some of Anatoly Fomenko is repiecing together the Tartarian history, right? And
Well, see,
he's
and
got
they've been talking about all this stuff has been coming out about Hillary, looking for not the Nephilim, but who was she looking for?
the Anunnaki. What does she say?
Oh gosh, I just saw an article on it. It just came out in some of the, in some of the stuff. Who was she looking for? She was looking for the guy. I can see his face. Part of the reason they killed in the
Akhenaten or something?
no in the Saudi Arabia thing. Part of the reason it wasn't about
Nimrod.
yes, it was Nimrod.
Nimrod then. Nimrod
And
or Marduk or
no, I think it was
Malak
Nimrod. Here it is. Here it
Okay.
is. Gilgamesh and the
or
Nephilim.
Gilgamesh.
Gilgamesh and the Nephilim. So this has come out that
I haven't seen this yet. This is
yeah,
ridiculous.
I thought I sent this to you. So
No.
part of us going to war in Iraq was that Hillary was
Yes.
looking for the resurrection of the Chamber of Gilgamesh,
Mhm.
and archaeologists believe that they may have found, the lost tomb and the oldest book, and that she was looking for this because so part of it is they believe that these Satanists think that they can like
Mhm.
jump their body or something. It's something about like living
Well,
forever.
Obama thought that too. You know, he went to look at himself as the statue in Egypt. He famously went and because he thought that he was the reincarnation of
Yes.
Akhenaten.
And that's why they were moving those mummies and all that stuff.
I think it was their motive. Yeah. And well, this was when you look into ISIS, remember the whole ISIS brigade, the terrorist organization and a lot of people said it's the Israeli secret intelligence service. So that's one aspect of it. But if you actually go to Edward Snowden's interpretation back from 2011, he was saying it was like the international state of Israel and Syria or something. And they were trying to recreate like the Fertile Crescent lands and reclaim all this shit. And ISIS and all the terrorists that they enlisted to go and do all the terrible shit that they did across the Middle East back in the 2010, 11, 12, 13 years, the number one dictate that they had was destroy and deface all of the monoliths.
Yes.
Fucking
and see,
get
like
rid of all of the evidence.
They were to immediately build over all of the sites and dig over all the sites and
That's right.
cover the tomb sites and all of this. And then there was another one.
And something's wrong. It's a whole world of deceit. We're going into Iraq to get artifacts. Not to get anything but artifacts.
There you go. That was ISIS. Yep.
But which artifacts?
I don't know. They just said artifacts. There were things in Iraq that were so old that we had to go get. Bush wanted those artifacts.
Bush wanted them.
Did we get them? And if so, where did they go?
We got them. They said they got everything they needed from that country.
Everything they needed.
I don't know. We have it.
Saddam Hussein was building a massive reconstruction of Babylon near the ancient city.
He was recreating
Was he
Solomon's
trying to
temple,
hide
in
something
fact.
huge? Is that why the U.S. decided to invade Iraq so fast and acquire the ancient relic? If you go on the Department of State's website and type in Gilgamesh, you are actually brought to the formal request for the ancient tomb of Gilgamesh. They were requesting his body from the burial site. So when we invaded Iraq, we went in and just took it all, and we actually had to return it. There's even an email from WikiLeaks that says requesting documents pertaining to the resurrection chamber of Gilgamesh, the location of his body, and the location of the buried Nephilim. Our entire world is biblical. So what does our government do? It comes in and it covers it up.
So if you don't think this is a spiritual warfare thing, it is.
Well, at very least, an alien reconstructed past warfare, because these are the Elohim. That's the Nephilim were the hybridized human Elohim varieties. They were the fallen ones. They were also mixed with us in some sort of way, whether that meant by the interpretation that they actually had, that they'd fornicated with human women and had giant kids. Like their lore that you can reconstruct kind of like in the Marabaglino sense, where these mutant giants would grow and gestate to the point where they would literally burst their mothers because they would become too large for the womb, and they would kill the mother. And then you had this giant that would grow to 15, 20 feet in stature, and it would rapaciously eat all the crops, and then the townspeople wouldn't know what to do with them. And so there's also all sorts of shit that exiles them to the Americas, and the natives here had to fucking deal with them. And that Stephen Quayle actually is probably the best guy to go look at in terms of the deepest level of research for the American giants that are still talked about in a lot of the native nations.
The Smithsonian destroyed all the giant bones, had them drug out into the ocean, and
they're off of Catalina Island. They're off of Catalina Island.
I've heard that.
They were there. I've got books that chronicle all that stuff where they would pay $1 a bag back in the late 1800s to these guys to not look in the bags. In order for you to get paid, you had a supervisor on the ship that would sign off and said nobody looked, and everybody would get paid $1 a bag if you successfully went to the location and just dumped them. And if we just found out where those fucking things were and sent some scuba missions out there, what do you think we'd find?
Well, I'm sure. It's wild.
This is where the Vsteg goes. It's an archaeological investigation, and that's why it's kind of like it riles me up, if you can't tell, because we're still not at the bottom of it.
We still don't know. Yeah. Or do we? I don't know. It's all out there if you want to know, I guess. It's just where you want to go, and I guess that's where the qualia points you. When you get the affirmation, when your gut, when you listen to yourself and say, oh yeah, that resonates with me. That makes sense. Or I trust myself on that. And then what interests you, and you can kind of point yourself to find more information, but it's all out there.
I think that's probably what Cliff really meant too, is, like even the quality of your pirates in high school, in the midst of this conversation.
Nobody cares where I went to high school. Yeah.
Nobody cares about where you went to high school, and nobody cares outside of this conversation what that really means. But it is significant, and you got to find your own qualia for what that means for your spiritual path, for your meaning, for whatever it is that you jive with it, for your kind of soul contract that you are manifesting as, and it's probably wise. It was funny on that. I'm pretty sure on that tweet, even Heidi was like something to the effect of, so you should take your own advice or something, or something like that.
I just put point taken.
Point taken is what you said.
That's what I said. That was my response. Point taken. But then I was like, oh, I'm still going to share, because I like to geek out with my friends and say like, oh, I saw this, and this ties to that to me. And what do you guys think? I love hearing in the comments all our friends and what they think of it. And, and then when we have our chats and stuff.
So do you think that we're going to have some of this stuff manifest this summer? Is that what the secrets coming out's going to all be about? Are we going to get some absolution on?
I don't know. It's been really disappointing with the whole Cash and Bongino thing, that they're doubling down. And now they're saying, today, Danny Bongino got on and said, now there is video of, and when you listen to it, I should pull up the thing, because
video of Epstein killing himself. Is this what he's saying?
Me off so bad.
Oh my God. Yeah, right.
What he said. And when you listen to his words, because my thought was, okay, how does a dead guy walk himself out of he said he's dead when he goes in, and he's he's alone when he goes in, and he's alone when he leaves. And I'm like, how does a lone person leave when they're dead?
Yeah.
How is that possible? Unless he's saying he wasn't dead when he left and he walked out of there, and that's what they're going to show you, is that he wasn't dead, and he just can't say that part yet.
God, I hope so. He and Pam Bondi have a long way to go to give me any confidence. Like, they've got to first prove to me that they're not Israeli assets, plain and simple. Like, because even in the press conference yesterday, what's the press secretary's name? I always forget her name.
Oh God, I was just gonna call her Kaylee, but that's the old one.
Kaylee McKinney, the old one, yeah. The new one, she's smart. I like her, but everybody knows who I'm talking about. The White House press secretary was answering. She was fielding a question about the Clinton body count, and she even said something. Well, Pam Bondi's always followed through on the promises she's made, and I'm like, bullshit. That's the biggest horseshit.
Yeah,
that's the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard. Come on, stop being so diplomatic about this. You know, and we really need to get through that point. I think myself, until the masses are going to wake up to some of the crazier stuff. I think they're hung up on the Epstein stuff, and until that's resolved, I don't know how much listening they can do.
To me, what it proves is that the Epstein thing is part of the 3-letter agency. It is part of their system. It's how the 3-letter agency blackmails people.
Yeah.
And so it's part of the system. It's working exactly how it's supposed to work. Yes, it's working. And now he's part of it. And yes, it's working. And this is how they do their thing. And it's showing. It's like when Tyson fought, and me included, thought, oh, he's gonna, be on the good guys, and he's gonna, not take the money, and he's gonna be for the little guy. No, they showed you the contract, and he did exactly what the contract said, and he took the money. And he's showing you who the FBI is. He's showing you who the CIA is. They're showing you, this is what we do. We lie to you. We use these honeypots to blackmail people. And then we control people. Yes, this is what we do. I'm showing you, So yes, it's working perfectly, just like we have always done it. This is what Hoover created this for, was to create child pornography and then blackmail people with it. This is what we do. Yes. Do you guys understand now? Yeah, we've been doing this for years. This is how it works.
Do you think that's a technique of like, we are gonna show you that we ourselves are blackmailed so that you guys will understand? And because where does it end if that's the case?
I mean, if you agree to sit in the seat, if you agree to be part of the conversation, if you agree to stay in the room, I mean, I had a conversation with some people the other night, and I said, enough. It's not funny. It's not something you joke about. It's not funny to talk about harming children. It's not a joke.
Yeah, it's really gotta always remain there, and we always have to be vigilant about using that kind of a thing and exiling people from communities that think this way. I really do think this. There isn't any room in a healthy community for somebody that even jokes about that kind of shit, because where does it end?
Right.
Exile is what you deserve. And you need a healthy, strong community that agrees with the act of exiling too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, and that's how the judgment of a community. You know what I mean? Like when Gazoo says children are their currency, that's the judgment of a community. I thought this was interesting. I don't know how valid it is, because I thought Hillary got picked up. He's talking about October of 2017. And I thought she was arrested September of 16.
On November 1, 2016, Hillary and Bill Clinton and their entourage of assistants affected a civilian coup. In contrast to the usual concept of a coup where the military is involved and takes over the White House and communication centers, very much like the scenarios you see in a movie, this coup was done silently and very effectively through two methods: corruption and co-optation. The Clintons have been involved in co-opting our White House, our judiciary, our CIA, our Federal Bureau of Investigation, our Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, and our Director of the FBI, James Comey, for some time now. What they've done is to make sure that they were part and parcel of a group of people who were interrelated through political cronyism. However, in order to stop this coup, we in the intelligence community and others involved have informally gotten together, and with their permission, I am beginning to announce that we've initiated a counter coup through Julian Assange and WikiLeaks. What has happened in effect when Comey had to open up the case of Hillary Clinton and discuss the emails that were involved with the Anthony Weiner case, it was not the case itself that was as important as the fact that this was the entree for many of us in the counter coup to say to the administration, we have your number. Not only do we have your number, we're going to stop you from making Hillary the president of the United States. And at the same time, we will convict and indict the president of the United States, Loretta Lynch, and many others who were involved in the cover-up of the massive corruption that occurred under the Clinton Foundation. Now, in both cases, their coup was silent, and our counter coup was silent, and it was all transgressed or occurred on the internet. And this is probably the first time in the history of any country where a coup was initiated through the internet and a counter coup was initiated through the internet. I am just a small part of something far bigger than myself. It was the brave men and women who were in the FBI, the CIA, the Director of Intelligence, the military intelligence, and men and women in 15 other intelligence organizations who were sick and tired of seeing this corruption in the White House, in the Justice Department, and in the intelligence system. And we decided that there was something we had to do in order to save the Republic. So we initiated a counter coup through Julian Assange, who's been very brave and really quite formidable in his ability to come forth and provide all the necessary emails that we gave to him in order to undermine Hillary and Bill Clinton. Again, America, we're going through a major, major transition and, quite frankly, a second American Revolution. We do not have guns. We do not have weapons. We do not intend to kill anybody. We do not intend to harm anybody. But we, the American public, and those of us who serve as veterans and in the intelligence service like myself, will stop the Clintons from assuming power that they don't deserve. At the same time, we will make certain that Obama leaves without any trail of a pardon or any other act of treason. In effect, we want a peaceful transition in this great American republic. I bring you this news, and I want you to understand what has happened. A moment of history is occurring right now in front of us, and I'm proud to explain it to you.
I mean, that is the clearest thing that makes the most sense to me and that I believe to my core.
Well, I wonder if there's even anything back to the NBA finals this year. You know, one of Hillary's long forgotten about involvements was with the Oklahoma City bombing and the cover up of the Whitewater scandal.
Yep.
So I'm wondering if it's not even coming full circle to where we're even going to get just fucking all of it and just bury those motherfuckers.
Bill had the nerve to come and speak at the Oklahoma City bombing memorial this year.
Oh, you're kidding me. What a cringe moment.
Disgusting. Yeah. Disgusting. Yeah. Because the evidence against her for that case was kept in the Fed building
inside
here
the
in
building.
Oklahoma City. Yeah. And so a lot of people believe that that's why the building was destroyed. And because that case was about to start. And so.
Well, there's that other thing that's like the last 2 weeks, that FBI agent, Paul Weisapal. Have you seen this? And everybody's like, it's one of those face swap things, and you can only take these things so far. But there's been a lot of speculation on Twitter where Paul Weisapal and Timothy McVeigh are the same person.
Oh, yes, I've
Timothy
seen
McVeigh
that.
wasn't actually assassinated. He's FBI agent Pi Weisapal. And you might be able to look that up because it's pretty
I
recent.
want to see if I can find it.
Weisapal is like WYS.
Yeah, it's very hard to see.
Like that.
Well, maybe I can do it under.
Because, I mean, what we're getting at is Patsy, Timothy McVeigh, the Patsy, who probably didn't do it.
Or just like the who's the guy with the JFK shooting or whatever, and they had him take a fall.
Yeah. There's always the fall guy with every single one of these big events. And I mean, Lee Harvey Oswald famously stopped the first 3 attempts of assassination of JFK throughout the summer. Here you go. Yeah, this is what everybody's been talking about on Twitter right here.
There's the other guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're like lining up his ear.
That's what I mean. They do this shit all the time. They've done this with Bill Hicks and Alex Jones for years. There might be some validity to it, but you can't.
Who knows?
Can't ever know.
Yeah.
People end up looking similar with similar facial structures and stuff, but
yeah.
They've even done it. Well, they do it with JFK Jr. a lot too. They'll find him in a crowd, and then they'll line up the earlobes, and it is pretty hard to recreate somebody's unique ear structure. It's almost like a fingerprint. So that's why there is some validity probably to consider about it, at least, unless it's a mask. You never know. Somebody might be wearing a mask these days, a really sophisticated mask, just to throw us off. For whatever
and with
reason.
AI now, that's where like when they're saying they're coming out with this video now after they've told us the cameras were off or didn't work or whatever with Epstein. Now all of a sudden, there's video not of him actually killing himself, but of around the area, and he was the only one walking in and he was the only one leaving. I'm like, how does a dead guy leave by himself? But okay, Anyway, it's just, I don't know what they're going to show, and I'm tired of listening to the BS.
Well, June 1st, it's right around the corner. Our June 1st to August 31st dates these shows are only going to get crazier and crazier, I think, in the 3-month span of the summer.
It's very interesting. Yeah. And I had like a June 6th thing. And then of course, we're leading up to, I am a little disappointed. I have to say, Trump was saying like, we're going to have a year celebration from Memorial Day to, was it to 4th of July, 26, and Memorial Day kind of came and went and was kind of a nothing burger in my opinion. There wasn't a lot of big parades or celebration. And then there was some military movement, but I think it was kind of a cover for some military movement, to be honest. And then I haven't heard any other
There was kind of like nothing huge in the news. That was the most noteworthy thing to me, is all this emotional tension build, and Cliff's release language is going to be hitting us mid-June all the way up through August at its heaviest.
Which
that was noteworthy to me.
Flag Day. It's they're supposed to have the big military parade, and of course Trump's birthday. And all the libtards are saying, "Oh, he's a draft dodger, and then he's having a military parade for his birthday. I'm like, you guys are morons, but
Well,
whatever.
do you think they'd even, how the Fed kind of nodded at Bix with the Glix comics too? I've always wondered, like, would they be so on the nose to do the silver revaluation on his birthday on 4th of July too? Like everybody would think like, oh, it's 4th of July, but it's also Bix's birthday. And that
Happy
it's
birthday,
kind of
Bill. Yeah.
that same Glix nod,
That would
you
be fun.
wonder.
Yeah, that would be cool. I'd like for him to wait a little while.
Yeah, I know. I hope you get settled. Honestly, just personally, because you're my friend, I hope you get settled before it all happens.
Whether it does or it doesn't, once again, we live in the ever-present now, like Uncle Cliff says, and the universe is abundant. We have everything we need right now. And we have to stop thinking. That's where, like, the bad ones, the evil ones, the Fed, whoever the bad ones are, want us to think in a model of scarcity and that we don't have enough. We have enough. We live in abundance. We are the energy. We're what they are trying to capture. That's why they created money and tried to trick us with time and in the 4D. And that's the whole thing, is they're trying to trap our energy in the 4D, in the square box, in Saturn. That's the lie, and that's where, like, I think that these plasma balls and free energy and all this is going to be some of those tools that do free us. And we're going to be part of freeing ourselves to understand that we live in abundance and that we have everything we need right now. And so,
and the experience itself that's the stuff that you're here for. Just experiencing it, just to experience your life, what you chose, the way that it's unfolding, to see what happens. It's easy to get. I lose sight of it just because stress drags into it, and we all sense it. We're all mind controlled by this system to some extent.
Yeah. That's why we need to go to meetups, and we all need to remember to hang around each other and check in with each other, and watch the show and jump in the live chat, and look at the qualia so that you can like stay in the fun and listen to your intuition, and let the universe remind you that you're enough and you have enough, and we live in abundance. All those good things. So.
But also at the same time, like we just said kind of 5 minutes ago, we in this, the phraseology in the pre-show, we're talking about kindness as a kindness first policy.
Sure.
I think kindness is a good resting spot for us to achieve, but we have a tendency to get into like these terminologies, like just accept people for who they are. Well, sure, you can do that just fine, but you can also be critical of your friends, and we should be critical of our friends and
boundaries are important.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's important also. It's not all just butterflies and rainbows because they chose to live how they wanted to. That's how we get pedophile networks, because we turn a blind eye to it for too long without saying anything about it. Imagine if 60 years ago we started looking into, why are all these kids showing up on milk cartons, and just really tried to do something about it instead of just wondering about it and letting the thought flee away.
Yeah.
Who knows where we'd be at?
Yeah. No, it's definitely important, because you can be an observer, like Mom's saying, but you have to have those boundaries.
Exactly. Well, kindness is the best settling spot. That's where we all want to get to. And that's because that's where it's where you don't have to be so stressed all the time, and you don't have to be, I get road rage too easily myself, just because of a lot of different factors, and it's not a good spot. I don't like resonating there. But if the world itself had a little bit better etiquette, I say just human etiquette, and we observed those etiquette guidelines, and we didn't make so many concessions that bled us into getting taken advantage of, we'd be in a better spot. And, you know, we were talking about it on Clint's show last week where we were even, you know, Robin Dunbar's number. Wouldn't it be a cool world if we created really specialized communities that never went beyond a certain amount of people? That if it went beyond the 150 person community, like Robin Dunbar's number suggests, we might be healthier for it. And we can still have friends over in that clan over there, but this clan is all about specifically this stuff. And we need that clan because they specialize in that. And we need it for what we're inventing over here. And we can't possibly spend all of our time with what they're specializing in. But when you try to bring everybody, all, you know, a million people into your same clan, it's just going to fall apart because you can't possibly keep tabs on everybody then personally. And that's just, I think it's a constraint of being human, but we should probably lean into the constraints that make us who we are. It's just my 2 cents on it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Well, I am going to run. We have a busy night ahead of us. I'm going to do a show with Johnny a little bit later. It's probably going to be another hour or so. But I love doing these. I think those are so much fun. And I'm looking forward to our new night on Wednesday night. So we'll be doing Wednesday nights, Vsteg and Qualia with
Thursdays.
Is it Thursday? Is today Thursday?
Yes. Wednesday was our old day.
Okay. Yeah. This is where thank you. It's been a long week.
You're everybody get Lisa some referrals to buy her house. So she herself can be a little bit more channeled in.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I've had people changing schedules with me, and not picking on you. I'm saying other people picking things up and dropping things off and moving things around and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, my schedule's
the school year ending, and that in and of itself is a task and a half, you know?
Yeah, all the things. Everybody's got all the things. We all have all the things, you know. Anyway, I just got my days mixed up. But so new Qualia and Vsteg on Thursday evenings. So set your calendar. I need to go set my calendar. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks, Ben.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.